lab had no name, only a serial number etched onto the exterior plating, C-47X. Hidden deep beneath the frosted soil of what was once northern Canada, it was built in the early 2070s as a last-ditch attempt to preserve a sliver of humanity, a time capsule for the future. By 2090, the world above had long since turned into a fragmented, heat-scorched wasteland. The lab remained cold, preserved, and sealed tight by solar-powered fail-safes and geothermal backups. Until the day everything went dark. It started with a solar flare. Massive, unexpected, and violent. The satellites that monitored the sun had failed to detect the surge in time. Power grids across the globe fizzled out like a dying heartbeat. C-47X, designed to survive even a limited nuclear event, was not prepared for a sudden, total EMP strike. Its cooling systems groaned, faltered, and then died. Inside the lab, rows upon rows of cryogenic pods lined the walls in a circular array, glowing softly with blue light. They were silent guardians of the past, scientists, billionaires, soldiers, sick children, all frozen at death's edge, hoping for a future cure, a revival, or immortality. Most had died of terminal illnesses. A small section, however, was quarantined behind a triple-lock glass barrier, labeled only as Containment, Class R. The glass fogged over. Ice crystals began to weep under the subtle shift in temperature. Red lights blinked erratically on a monitoring console. No one was left alive to notice. Hours passed. The internal temperature crept upward degree by degree. Moisture pooled inside the pods. Slowly, hisses of escaping gas accompanied a faint mechanical click. One of the containment pods disengaged. Then another, and another. By the end of the day, 7 pods from the class or section had opened completely. The figures inside were not supposed to wake up. Not ever. They weren't asleep in the way the others were. These weren't hopeful bodies seeking second chances. They were corpses, frozen in their final moment of agony. Victims of an unidentified pathogen that had swept through 3 isolated towns in 2083 before being contained and buried, both literally and figuratively. The disease had a peculiar trait. When its host cooled beyond a certain point, the pathogen went dormant. So dormant, in fact, that scans showed no signs of cellular activity. Dead, but only temporarily. The first body to rise was a man in a torn environmental suit. His face was sunken, skin papery and cracked, eyes blind. Yet he moved, awkward, trembling, like a marionette on broken strings. His mouth opened but emitted no sound, only a thick stream of black fluid that dripped to the floor with a hiss, eating into the metal. The others followed. They did not speak, think, or remember. The pathogen had hollowed them out, eaten away thought, leaving only one compulsion: seek heat. Living heat. Any kind. The lab had been forgotten by the world. But it wasn't entirely uninhabited. Sierra Langley, 27, a former biosystems engineer, had taken refuge in the abandoned tunnels after her outpost had been destroyed in a rogue AI drone attack. She didn't know the full purpose of the C-47X lab when she stumbled across its emergency hatch a week prior. She only knew that inside was warmth, food, and power, 3 rare luxuries in her scavenger's life. She had been living in the old security quarters, slowly exploring the maze of the lab. Most of the cryopods had shut down, leaving husks behind. Dead dreams. Until she heard the first scream. It didn't sound human. It was high-pitched, ragged, and laced with something that set her teeth on edge. Sierra, armed only with an old plasma torch and a half-broken pulse pistol, crept down the maintenance shaft toward the sound. What she saw made her recoil. One of the corpses was slumped over a terminal, its fingers twitching uselessly across the controls. Its body emitted steam. The floor around it had melted from the black liquid seeping from its limbs. A second corpse, no, not corpse anymore, was crawling along the wall, leaving a trail of decay. Its head snapped toward her, nostrils flaring. And then it screamed. Sierra ran. Through the cold corridors she had once deemed safe, she sprinted as alarms finally flickered back to life. The backup generator, attempting to compensate, had restored minimal lighting. It was enough to illuminate the nightmare. The dead were rising, not as zombies, not mindless, but as vessels for something parasitic, ancient, and now wide awake. The pathogen wasn't just alive. It was evolving. Infected bodies began to twitch in the unopened pods, heated by residual warmth. Sierra realized what was happening too late. She sprinted to the communications hub, only to find it fried, EMP damage. She needed to seal the class or wing. Maybe contain the outbreak, maybe buy time. She knew the override codes from her exploration. But reaching the mainframe meant cutting through the bioresearch corridor. The hallway was lined with observation rooms, each one telling a piece of the story the public was never meant to know. Notes scrawled in panic across glass panels. They feel through heat. Don't let them cluster. Cryo equals safe. Warmth equals death. Security footage played on loop. Scientists being torn apart. Blood evaporating into mist from chemical reactions. Test subjects screaming as they burst into flame. Not from fire, but from chemical combustion caused by internal reactions of the pathogen once it reached critical warmth. She held her breath, made it to the override terminal. Just as she keyed in the sequence, a shadow passed across the screen. One of the infected had followed her. This one was different, fresher, less decayed. A woman, probably a scientist. Her eyes were open, clouded, but seeing. She cocked her head at Sierra, lips twitching. And then she spoke. "You're warm," she said, voice cracking like dry wood. Sierra froze. This was impossible. None of the previous ones had spoken. "You're alive." The infected woman stepped forward. Skin blistered, hands blackened and cracking. But her mouth curled into something like a grin. "We need you to feed the change." Sierra fired. The pulse pistol lit up the hall with a brief flare, the shot vaporizing part of the infected woman's skull. But the body didn't fall. It took another step. Sierra backed away, fired again, this time hitting the chest. The woman spasmed, dropped, and then began convulsing violently. Steam hissed from her body. And then silence. The override sequence completed. The doors slammed shut, locking down the class or wing. But it wasn't over. The pathogen didn't just live in the dead. It had evolved beyond the original host. Airborne in small traces. Carried in the steam. It clung to warmth, to moisture, to breath. Sierra coughed. Once. Twice. No. She stumbled to the med bay, found an old scanner. It buzzed, word, and then displayed a reading in red. Foreign organism detected. No cure. No way out. She had a choice. Let it spread. Or end it here. She returned to the security room. There, beneath a floor panel, was the emergency containment protocol, a self-destruct trigger. The lab had enough fissionable material in its power core to vaporize the entire underground network. She set the countdown. 10 minutes. She recorded a message, should anyone ever hear it. "This is Sierra Langley, engineer of no one, survivor of nothing. The dead here didn't stay dead. The disease, it lives in the heat. We thought we could freeze death, but all we did was hide it. Don't come looking. Let the cold keep its secrets." With 2 minutes left, she sat by the central console, pistol in hand, body trembling. Her breath came faster, hotter. Her eyes blurred. Her skin itched. She smiled. "I'm warm," she whispered. Then the world burned white.